This spectacular weaving depicting the Virgin Mary and infant Jesus on a throne is an example of a golden tapestry, or a type of textile produced in Brussels in the late 15th and early 16th centuries. Skilled artisans wove gold and silver thread throughout these complex narrative tapestries to create subtle, luminous effects. Every aspect of creating these textiles was labor-intensive, including making the metallic thread. Specialists flattened gold or silver wire into extremely thin strips that were then wrapped around a fiber core, in this case, dyed silk. You can see the coiled metal and areas of exposed silk in these photos taken by our head of conservation and installation, John Griswold. Looking closely at the tapestry upended my assumptions about where the weavers had incorporated gold thread. I was sure that we'd find some in the fabric draped behind the Virgin and Child, known as a cloth of gold. This type of textile, produced in central Italy, was usually made of silk, woven or embroidered with gold thread. In images of the Virgin and Child, artists often depicted cloths of gold hanging behind the holy figures to emphasize their importance. In Southern Europe, it was common for painters to represent these textiles using actual gold leaf, tooled to mimic brocade, as in this painting by the Italian artist Fra Angelico, on display in this exhibition. In Northern Europe, painters such as Hans Memling used pigment to illusionistically create the effect of gold thread, which was a different sort of artistic achievement. Interestingly, when we look closely, even though the weavers of this tapestry were using gold thread, the same medium as the makers of cloths of gold, they followed the approach of Northern European painters, creating the illusion of gold with varying shades of yellow thread, as we see here. Instead, glittering gold thread appears in the ornate architecture framing the Virgin and Child and their entourage. Here you can see that the metallic thread was used not to represent gold, but rather to create the effects of light and shadow to make the columns appear three-dimensional. To me, this speaks to the weavers' creativity and mastery of their medium, playfully blending the practices of painters and textile artists to transform dyed silk into gold and gold into light.